Hi, hello, and welcome to Season 2 of City of Cards. How are we doing? A year has passed since we started this grand game of ours. Oh, and what a year it has been. I am incredibly excited to see how this one goes. We've had a lot of scheming occurring. Not necessarily a significant amount of RP. Summers are typically quieter in our play-by posts as everyone is enjoying vacation and or getting work done. But the RP that has been seen has been delightful. And the scheming you guys have partaken in your usual channels in response to the bill that was announced last turn. And of course, the harrowing Gestalt having been unleashed at Fort Banks. Much to be discussed, much to be considered, much to be schemed. And the time has come to see how that all unfolds. I absolutely adore this discussion about subtitles, both in Discord and in the chat. I was reading that as I was getting the final nuts tightened before we kicked off things. I see Rat Race, Claims and Calamity. That's a decent one. I like the alliteration there. Superficial Niceties. Patrick Hagen, Cuddle Puddle. It'd be interesting. I think we should have, though, a red versus blue. I mean, at the beginning, for sure. There was a lot. Yeah. I actually think I would consider that, having a genuine discussion and perhaps retroactively naming the playlist on the YouTube channel for Season 1 with the subtitles. Perhaps, after discussion, we should consider that. I think that's quite cool. Scarrowing. But yeah, to capture, though, all that has happened within the last year into a single subtitle, I would not envy us in the future that is going to have to work that one out, because yeah, we've had the beef between the Knights and the Redcoats. We've had the Knights changing leadership. We've had the Gemini League scouring and discovering secrets within the Giovanni building and undoing curses. We've had anarch politics happening in the shadows as the two anarch factions work things out between each other, their differences. We've had massive political swings of fists as the Patriots stick up a middle finger to the Primogen venture, as the Custodians sway over the Primogen of the Toreador, with the Sheriff bill, with the lockdown in Combat Zone as a result to the dramatic killing of a SI agent by the Knights. The weird and interesting conversations between a mortal business organization and a kindred criminal empire. And I haven't touched on everything, I know that. There's been so much, and it's been so much fun. But now, we begin Season 2. So, let us start how we start every one of our turns, and roll for initiative to see who's going first. Right, Redcoats are sitting at number 7. The Patriots are number 2, down near the bottom, with the group at number 5 also in the middle. And we have the custodians leaping up to the first place. Those +2 initiatives that they get from the American Respiratory Theatre and the SI Burial Grounds very much coming into their role here. The Knights at second place and the Gemini League coming in behind them. Oh no! The Redcoats and the Gemini League are tied at number 7. 5 for the group, and the Patriots are at the end. The Society of St. Leopold rolled at 10, so they are the first NPC faction. The Boston Camarilla at number 6, and First Light in 3rd for the NPCs. So we got to roll 2 dice. The Gemini League are on the left, the Redcoats on the right. Who will roll highest? The Redcoats. So the Gemini League are going 4th. The Redcoats going 3rd. Pills from a City on the Hill. Dealing with the Pocket. Still going on with these subtitles. I love it. Okay. So, we have our factions and the order in which they are proceeding. Let us begin, like we've done so many times before, with the Custodians. They've written up a gorgeous little narrative for me to read out, and have all the passes to gain. 1 coin, 1 rep, 1 XP. Their domain is wealthy of resources after all. What is it that the Custodians are up to? As summer fades, the Custodians turn from maintaining the masquerade arrives. To continue their actions of penance for the social blunders of the last Congress, they double down on their assigned tasks. While hunting remains out of the field of expertise, mundane matters are perfectly solvable. Working with their allies to help bring scrutiny down on the perimeter of their territory, the members resolve a dispute at the loss and disrupt the investigations of the SI. The next Congress looms on the horizon, all the better that it occurs on a peaceful night enacted by the Custodians. Humphrey's Migraine, Blind Betting, The Hilly Road to Power. Season 1. Guys, I swear they aren't the SI. You guys. I love this. This is delightful. Yes, the Custodians. Last Congress was, let us say, dramatic and theatrical due to the Custodians' part, and they came out of it with a shunned level, though recently with their friends in a Toreador Rosed Park, they've been able to change the narrative, smooth things over, and resolve their shunned level, though their contempt is high, and they might just gain it again if they're not too careful with the kindred populace that they have put into contempt with. I don't know if the grammar of that was entirely on point. But their first action is their cohort, who is incredibly impaired and weak. They're going to be reducing scrutiny at Rivermark Apartments. So, at Rivermark Apartments, I believe, is over here. Yes, Rivermark Apartments is sitting at 6 scrutiny. And it has an event, so if that event isn't resolved this turn, that will also increase the scrutiny. So it's a wise call for these guys to reduce scrutiny. Their real estate company is getting in there to make any kindred business look legit under SI eyes. Unfortunately, due to the real estate company not being in the best condition at the moment, impaired means that a cohort will roll -1 on top of the weak condition, which adds 1 coin to performing the action that they'll need to spend. So We'll do that now to remind ourselves, so we're done. They spent 2 coin for this cohort to act. -1 because of impaired. Let us see how they do. Well, it's 0 dice, so we take the lowest, and they both rolled the same number. But that is a 3 on a reduced scrutiny roll, which means... if I go to single base, that is 1 scrutiny reduced. Indeed. That is still... that basically, unless someone else... if someone else doesn't... if no one else resolves this event, that cancels out the scrutiny gained. So that is still scrutiny maintained. Still very much something to be appreciated of. Now, we move on to their first regular action, their second action that they're performing this turn, which is to resolve the event at Brick Bottom Lofts. Ah yes, the kindred dispute in which they are resolving. Now, the custodians have a faction objective. Now I want to see a good clean dispute which requires them to resolve a total of 10 dispute events. Disagreement is only a natural state between kindred. Ambitions, big or small, will always collide, and in those moments what is needed is mediation. Obtaining a reputation as conflict resolvers will only be a boon for us, and with our venues and skill set, we are in a promising position from which to obtain it. Indeed, the custodians would like to be the city mediators, though the recent shenanigans in Congress may get in the way of that in the short term, though actions like these definitely work their way towards overcoming that. It is a social role, and once they resolve this, 2 coin and 1 XP will be theirs, and they will gain a tick on their faction objective clock there. Let us see how well they do. They aren't spending any coin to provide a bonus, no. That's a 4, which means, because it is a resolve event action, I believe that is just 1 contempt. There you go. We're approaching Shand. We're edging ever so close to it, but we aren't there. Not yet. Obtaining kindred can always forget, but they very rarely forgive. Or forget. Obtaining a reputation as conflict resolvers aged really well. Indeed it did, Toononly. Indeed it did. Maybe they can improve their standing again, but yeah, Season 1 didn't work in their favor in that regard, Kazuma says. Indeed, yeah. Now, they gained 1 contempt, which I see a couple of us in chat are feeling good about for the custodians. Don't know if the custodians feels quite the same way. And they gain 1 XP and 2 coin, again, filling their coffers. And a tick on their faction objective. Their second action is to disrupt the investigation occurring at the Winthrop Yacht Club by the Society of St. Leopold. This is the last turn in which this investigation will be taking place. So this is basically the custodians putting a nail into the coffin to prevent the Society of St. Leopold from obtaining such a domain. They are spending 2 coin to acquire this +1 bonus to make sure they do extra well. Oh, I have also forgotten something. One of their faction abilities that I need to recall, which I will do now before I roll, just to keep the order of operations correct. Yes, decisive action. When you perform either the resolve event or disrupt investigation action, which is both the actions they're performing here, gain -1 contempt. So that 1 contempt they gained is reducted because the custodians are performing are doing decisive action. Boston Kindred are tired of the inaction in resolving the crisis the city faces. The custodians will step up and do what the government fails to do, accepting the rightful credit whilst doing so, of course. Yes, they are going out of their way to rewrite the bad reputation they have. But they have indeed spent that coin for the one bonus die in disrupting this investigation. That is a 4. And that means we are looking at remove 1 tick and gain 1 scrutiny. They assigned that scrutiny to gain a club passum. So that scrutiny is turning this 1 into a 2. And I think, if I remember, disrupt, that's 1 tick being removed from the Society of St. Leopold investigation clock. Very honourable of them indeed. Yeah, the SI have had it rough. 2 and only. They really, really don't. But yeah, I imagine many kindred are like you, Vosh. They are not so... They don't feel so bad for how much the kindred have ganged up against them. And that is, again, thanks to their decisive action that they've performed, another -1 on their contempt. Phenomenal. So that's a net minus in contempt. Before, of course, we inquire about the entanglements that they gain. They are still, however, in that 6 bracket. They are +6 contempt. So let us see what consequences to these actions occur for the custodians. Oh, and Nefarious Nashai. If I'm pronouncing your username incorrectly, I apologize, but that is Nefarious. Oh. That's not a... okay. So there's 2 contempt and +1 harm to a cohort. Ow. They didn't gain a shun level, though. Their efforts mitigate and prevented them from gaining a shun level that they would have otherwise gained this turn. But gosh, this real estate company, ow, they are now broken. They have taken just a beating. Ah, Zilfer. Why you have a mask? You're wearing a mask. How am I meant to know who is you behind this other covert disguise? That real estate company, Cambridge Easy Living. It's not so easy at the moment for them, that's for sure. Well then, moving on. Speaking of a sneaky Zilfer, the Knights. Boo, no shun. Well, they did have a shun in the past, in which you could count. Now, speaking of discovering a Zilfer, the Knights, in which Zilfer is a member of, it is a masquerade. That is true. You guys are, living up to the game's name. We're going to everyone's maybe favorite gun-wielding, which they think is swords and treat like swords, maniacs known as the Knights. They gain 1 XP, they gain 1 coin, and they lose 1 contempt. And they also gain their final tick for the Duel of Kings and Queens faction ability clock, which means we might be seeing a change in leadership again, a swing of the pendulum between the camps of the Order. Their first action is to resolve... Oh, thank you. Oh, I have missed the order because trades. I failed to do the trade. There is only 1 trade, thankfully not involving the factions that have already gone. But the group is going to send 4 contempt, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the Knights. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. How kind of the knights to take on such a contemptuous burden. I appreciate the reminder, knights, keeping me right, as always. But yes, I think we'll see a pendulum shift between the camps sooner or later. But their knights' first actions this turn will be to resolve the Gestalt hunting that is occurring at Fort Banks. Yes, the Gestalt hunting. The Harrying Gestalt, due to some set of actions and consequences of things that happened long ago, the Harrying Gestalt do stalk the Boston Shadowlands, and they tear through the reality between the Vale and the Skinlands to invade the reality of the Kindred. And currently, Fort Banks is where the Harrying Gestalt is currently hunting. But the knights are on the case. The knights are patrolling the streets, and in fact, may be among the first in Boston's kindred population to encounter this beast. The Harrying Gestalt is a scary event, for it provides a hefty bonus of XP for those who resolve it, but also a potential for a significant amount of contempt. That XP is a bounty for every faction, though, and there has definitely been a lot of talk between all the factions of wanting to take the Harrying Gestalt. So the fact that the knights got there first may ruffle some feathers. It requires a mental roll to resolve. Let us see how these knights fare. We are doing a fortune roll. They are spending 2 coin for the bonus. So they are rolling 2 dice in total. And let us see how they do. Ooh. 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 I think... Oh, no. That is a 3 that they have rolled. Which means they get +2 contempt and the reward, which is a total of 4 contempt, which maxes out their contempt bar and gives them a shunned level. Dang. But that is the event resolved, and that is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 XP gained. And the Harrying Gestalt is banished to the other lands, away, back to the Shadowlands where it came from, and it no longer haunts at Fort Banks. But it cost the knights dearly in their reputation. Perhaps when the knights come back and speak, those who remember the fight speak of this beast, the kindred are in uproar at the rumors and just boy who cries wolf that the knights are partaking in, creating a threat that doesn't exist to justify their own existence. What shameful acts that the knights are partaking in just to try and write the narrative. Though they did a good job at ghostbusting those who do believe them and those who perhaps know better. Though there are other factions who may have wanted to do the ghostbusting themselves. That is the first action complete. We are moving on to the second Knights action, which they are creating. There's something lurking far worse than the Black Knights. You must listen. We are telling the truth. I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained is correct, Zilfer. That is correct. Speaking of venturing, the Knights and the group are collaborating as allies between the two factions. That enables them to create clocks on each other's sheets. I find it, to and only JJ, I find it something if like it was only the Congress going, we swear it's real, and all other kindred are going, you're crazy. I find it funny. Well, to be fair, currently the only individuals to have encountered this beast is the Knights thus far in the field of battle. Though there is a scene that's yet to resolve that might show another encountering between other kindred and this harrowing gestalt. And it's quite tricky to believe when such a powerful creature doesn't just wreck the masquerade instantly in its devastation. The weird amnesia that it inspires in its victims after it leaves is inadvertently making the masquerade, maintaining the masquerade, but also making it hard for kindred to detect its presence. Perhaps the Gemini knows something is up. We'll just have to see how a particular scene goes in the future. But yes, the Knights are creating a clock on the group's faction sheet as they intend to collectively work on a project. They are doing a remove claim action targeting Trinity Church. Basically, this is the resolving, and I think it might even be the beginning of a deal that was begun, that was quote-unquote signed. I say signed with quotation marks because contracts between kindred are always, if it is even put on a piece of paper, just a piece of paper. But the remove claim action being performed on the Trinity Church domain is to facilitate the transfer of this domain between the two factions. First things first, however, Trinity Church needs to be removed from the group's stewardship. So, the Knights are performing a remove claim action, but creating the clock on the group so that they have it. That was almost the start of last... Yeah, it was like a few months into the last season. And one of the partaking in that negotiations are very happy to see that we gain that this negotiation is going. I am receiving a notification that I just saw that has been posted. If we gained mission level or cohort switch our cohort action to reduce scrutiny on senior living. Okay, copy. Will do. I've just been given instructions and orders by the Knights to adjust actions that they have not yet partaken in. But that is their next action as opposed to this current one. Remind me again in case I instantly forget. But we are performing a a remove claim action. And that is a physical roll, which the Knights are particularly good at. They've already spent their bonus this round. So it is just a flat roll. Not great rolls this turn. Not the greatest of rolls, but progress nonetheless. They are removing. So that means, yes, they rolled a 1 to 3. So that is 1 tick that is gained on this clock. Okay. Their final action. Their final action is to use their cohort, and I'm going to check the Discord, is to use their cohort to reduce scrutiny on senior living. I see. So they're spending 1 coin for the Blades of Iron to go in and reduce scrutiny. And that's a 6. Okay, where the rest of the knights aren't having the best today. The Blades of Iron, the elite servants of Silas King himself, are kicking butt in the maintenance of the masquerade and reduce the scrutiny from 5 all the way down to 2. Incredibly efficient performance from the Blades of Iron of the Knights. Rightio. So now that the Knights' turn has concluded, we roll entanglements, and their entanglements, their contempt is 0 because they just gained a shunt level. So we're going to pay shunt level +1 coin to the highest status faction, or -1 status with that faction. And this is the first time we're seeing shunt level affect this, and because they can't afford it, that's going to be -1 status with that faction because they don't have the 2 coin to spend here. Oh no! Who is the status? What relationship is the Knights going to lose? Which allyship are they going to lose? They have 3 options here. There's the Gemini League. There's the Boston Camarilla. And there's the group. So, the group will be 1. The Gemini League 2. Boston Camarilla 3. Let us see which alliance. 3. And Emma called it. A tithe has been called. And the Knights are unable to pay it. Whew. Hey guys, I need a tithe for the imaginary monster I just bought. The monster's real. We can't pay our taxes because of the ghost. What do you mean you can't pay your taxes because of a ghost? It was a ghost. We can't pay our taxes. Indeed, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. The dynamic between the Knights and the Prince are on rocky terms at the moment. Interesting developments in the politics of Boston. Speaking of interesting politics, the Redcoats' new tax evasion scheme. Ghost. You must realize the threat. Our assets need to be levied. Ugh. How this game reflects its narratives in the dice rolls. Ugh. The dice gods surely are great narrative writers. Is that a front you're putting on? Hug and kiss? Are you truly as bummed as you say you are? Because you kind of seem like you're stoked. Harold and Gestalt bringing a new definition to ghosting. Clever one, 2 and only. Clever one. All right. Speaking of you, 2 and only, the Redcoats. What are you up to? And what quote have you chosen for this month's narrative for your action? Fate show thy force. Ourselves we do not owe. What is decreed must be, and be this so. Shakespeare. After a month of recollection and repercussion, planning and plotting, alliances and dealing, it called upon the Redcoats once more to enact their plans upon the city of a hill. Old connections have been strengthened by an accord between coteries. Even older connections have been leveraged, and it remains to be seen what the consequences of such a deal were. But, as this felt a new beginning of sorts, perhaps it was time for the Redcoats to expand their horizons. Feelers sent out to old contacts of kindred once connected with the Triad. Perhaps the Redcoats, with time on their side, could begin to return to the same level of renown that they once held. Their passives as +1 coin, and their first action. To ensure the smooth success of hosting a meeting of unknown parties on behalf of an elder kindred. Elder kindred might be referring a little bit young side, if it could be even imagined such a term being seen as on the young side for this kindred. To ensure the success of hosting a meeting of unknown parties on behalf of an elder kindred, Prince of Edinburgh and Pater of Mithras, Humphrey must make sure every detail was to be accounted for in the coming month. His mortals would work days he couldn't, and nights they wouldn't have to stay awake for. This was not an event in which there was a tolerance for mistakes. Yes, a particular Prince of Edinburgh, Pater of Mithras, and wearer of the death mask? Oh gosh, I am testing my recollection on his lineage of titles. Was in Boston a few months ago, during which he was passing through, merely staying a single night, having arrived in the North Americas to make his way to Milwaukee. He stopped by in Boston to pay Sir Humphrey a wee visit and asked for a deal. This is that deal. Good old Roger D. Campton, the one and only. And that deal is to resolve this event at Omni Parker House. So, they are going to roll social. Let us see how well they do. They are not spending the coin for bonus. That is a 5. So that is only 1 harm because it is... Oh. No. No. Okay, we're taking the 5 because I misrolled that. That is on me. Because it should have only been 1 die, but that is on me. So it is 1 week. It is a cohort, not me. You are correct. But because that was my error, and because it was completely my error, you guys read it out. It was me who did it. I'm giving you the higher of the 2 as the single dice. What just happened there is, because it is a cohort performing the action, not the faction, cohort always rolls tier. And take their coin. Thank you for the reminder. Take their money. Either way, a 5 is still 1 harm to the cohort that performed the action, so they are now weak. But the event is now resolved, which is 3 XP gained by the Redcoats. And also, because the event is a kind politics event, the Redcoats begin to make progress on an objective we have not yet encountered. In man we trust. Oh no, I know this Greek god. Prometheus stole fire from the gods, for he knew how much they needed it for warmth. For this, he was chained to a rock and tortured for eternity, and man used fire to burn the wood. Man was tempted into eating the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and was expelled before unlocking immortality. God gave humanity free will, and in man we can always trust to be self-serving. Kine are the bedrock of kindred society. Without them, kindred simply cannot exist, and as such those who control them control so much more than just their food. They are a hassle, an irritation, a danger at times, but a necessity, and an amusing one at that. They crawl around upon the ground like little ants, fascinating the kindred who toy with them as they confuse the string of fate for what is merely chance. They will pray, curse, live and die, never knowing their truth is another kindred's lie. Oh, the poetry! The poetry of the Redcoats is delightful. For yes, they are to resolve 10 kind politics as the Redcoats seek to invest themselves into kind affairs. Now, their second action is to reduce contempt. This indeed is the social role that we should have probably rolled. They are reducing contempt. This is indeed their faction, not their cohort, so we're clicking this button. They aren't spending any coin to provide a bonus. And that is another 5, so that is 2 contempt removed. I know that Greek god. That will always go well. I mean, it went pretty well. I was able to recall the pronunciation and not embarrass myself immediately. And your second regular action has a narrative to go with it. Using the newly finalized connection with Delsin Coates, the Redcoats moved to expand their domain slightly more with the final acquisition of their checklist. Save for City Hall, which remains in opposing hands, with access to the university's extensive resources and academic experts, the lawyers of Harrison and Smith would have no issue whatsoever smoothing over discrepancies on kindred domains or finding convenient loopholes to deal with any event that may arise. Yes, the Redcoats, using their new swaying of the Primogen Delsin Coates and his domain of Fenway Park, and the control in which the Redcoats have over the T, the metro system of the Boston, controlled at the center station of South Station, they are performing a claim domain action on the Boston University domain. Now, South Station means all domains count as 2 link closer for the faction that is controlling it. So Boston University, which would usually be a 5-tick clock, is only a 4-tick clock because it is counted as at least 2 links closer. So it's counted as adjacent to Fenway Park. So that is a 4-tick clock that they are using various means to make an easier acquisition. Boston University claim domain. Welcome to the neighborhood, says Kazima of the Patriots. I wonder how much bitterness is in that welcoming. Do you feel welcomed, Redcoats? Do you feel welcomed? I wonder. Claim domain is a tier role, as I am fairly confident in that statement. Correct. Are they spending coin? They are not. They are not spending coin. Just checking if there isn't any update. Okay. Now, there is no bonus being spent on this. That is a 2. That is progress. That is progress. Progress that is being made to the acquisition of Boston University. Now, that brings the Redcoats' turn to a close. Except for their entanglements, which they are at the 4/5 bracket of contempt. Let us see what the consequences of their actions are. Gain 2 contempt. So, they managed to nullify their entanglements with that reduced contempt roll. Very well done. Net gain of no contempt. And that brings the Redcoats to a close, and we move on to the Gemini League. Our favorite witches and warlocks. Our favorite league. Pardon me, my apologies. Now, they gain 1 XP as their passive. Their first action, and their narrative to go with it, goeth thusly. As per the informal agreement between the Congressors, it is the Gemini League's turn to help protect the Boston streets from prying eyes. Protecting the princes and the Camarillas' territories is paramount. They are performing a reduced scrutiny action targeting one Dalton, none other than the Ivory Tower, the Prince's Palace, for it is at 6 scrutiny. And the Gemini League are performing a great service to their benefactors and their government. They are performing the reduced scrutiny action. They get +1 die because they control the 5 Sisters domain. So we're looking at bonus die, +1. Let's see how well they do. That's a 5, so that is 2 scrutiny reduced at 1 Dalton. Bringing it down to 4. The eyes on the Prince's Palace from the SI are ever so slight. That's a significant. That's a whole quarter pulled away from the Prince's Palace, which is only good news. That can only be good. It'd be very bad if the SI knocked on the Prince's door. That would be very, very bad. Very bad. Very, very bad. And action 2. I'm going to reveal that action 2 was going to be a particular resolving of an event, but that event has already been resolved. They were beaten to that event. Instead, we have an alternative set of actions that they have provided. While most of the Gemini who came to Boston to assist the Giovanni Building hunting have returned to New Haven, the League still finds its membership growing. It would be best to expand their territories a bit in the neighborhoods they occupy. They are performing the claim domain action on the Connolly Container Terminal domain. So, that domain is adjacent to them. So, it is going to be a 4-tick clock. And I can copy and paste this to make this a wee bit speedier. There we go. Claim domain. That will be a tier roll in which we will see how well they do. That's a 5, so that's 2 ticks. That's halfway to acquiring the Connolly Container Terminal. A little access to a harbour would be interesting for the artifact holding and selling coterie. And that brings us to their final stage of their turn, their entanglements. There are 2, so that's their 0 to 3 contempt bracket for the entanglements. Let us see. Their consequence is +1 contempt. There we go. They indeed were beaten to the Howling Gestalt by another faction, but they made progress on other objectives nonetheless. And yes, that reminds me, because they completed a faction objective, this past month, I met with the 2 factions that needed a new objective, the Patriots and